Hi guys, welcome to MIT 811 Analysis and Design of Business Information Systems. Business analysts have a lot of ways of analyzing business information systems and designing them, and one of them is the use of data flow diagrams. Process modeling itself is a formal way of representing how business systems operate, and process models are used to represent process modeling. Now, one of the methods business analysts use in process modeling is the DFDs, which we'll be focusing on. We also have the business process modeling and notation (BPMN), and we have the unified modeling language, which is very common these days. Now, before we go ahead and draw a data flow diagram for any situation, we first have to know that designing an information system is about designing a system that can take some actions based on some set of conditions. If the conditions are met, then an action is taken. If the conditions are not met, then a different action or a different set of actions are taken. Now, in this first part of our tutorial, we'll be treating just three basic aspects. Then we'll cover how to actually draw a data flow diagram in part 2. But in this first part, we'll try to understand what we mean by conditions and actions. We want to have a basic understanding of what we mean by condition and actions. Then secondly, we want to learn how to draw a decision tree, which will be needful when we want to make our business information system to make decisions on our behalf. Then lastly, we will learn to draw a decision table using the decision tree we have created. We'll learn to draw a decision table using the decision tree that we have created. Now, first question is on one Bose manufacturing company which buys doodads, widgets, and thermal groups, whatever that means, in order to manufacture what you might call it. That could be any product. Now, the company uses a computer system to manage its accounts payable system, which includes a lot of functions like pay invoice and order number, vendor information, purchase order, and all that. Now, the part we're actually going to in the question talks about, I have it typed here. The part we're actually going to talks about obtaining an authorization. It says authorization must be obtained before a valid invoice is paid with the following conditions. The company OneBoot has a lot of vendors that supply them products or raw materials that they use to manufacture their products. Now, these vendors will come with their own invoice, and we want our information system to compare some things and check some conditions, and if those conditions are met, then it will take some particular actions. Now, part of the condition says that 1. If the amount on the invoice is below 50,000 naira, it is immediately authorized. The second condition says that invoices between 50,000 and 500,000 inclusive with an early payment discount, or if the invoice is more than 10 days old, it is authorized for payment. Now, it says invoices under this range and does not pass any of these conditions is rejected and tested another time. And then the third condition is that for invoices greater than 500,000, a cash requirement schedule report is produced and delivered to management. Now, we notice that there are three basic conditions. These are our initial conditions. The first one is that the amount, which is less than, if it is less than 50,000 naira, it is immediately authorized. If it is between 50,000 and 500,000, then we test some other conditions, and then if the invoice passes those conditions, then it is authorized for payment. But if it fails any of those conditions, it's rejected and tested another time. Then for invoices greater than 500,000, a cash requirement schedule report is produced and delivered to management. Now, how do we represent this information using a decision tree? The first thing we have to create is a decision tree. Now, this is what a decision tree looks like. we have not filled any information yet. Now I'll gradually explain how I came about this shape, and I hope you guys will be able to follow. Now, from the beginning, we are told that the amount, if the amount is below 50,000 naira, it is immediately authorized. So what that means, that this is going to be one of this line is going to represent our first condition. This is going to represent our second condition, which still has some other conditions to be tested under it, and this is going to represent our third condition, which is above 500,000 naira. Now, for our first condition, we say if it is less than 50,000 naira, if it is less than 50,000 naira, this is our first condition. If our invoice is less than 50,000 naira, what happens? We authorize payment. Authorize payment. Authorize payment. From the question, it says if the amount is below 50,000 naira, it is immediately authorized. So we authorize payment here. That's why we are authorizing payments here, because it is less than 50,000 naira. Anytime it is less than 50,000 naira, we authorize payment. Now the second condition, let's keep the second condition first because it's very complex. I'll explain that later. Let's go to the third condition, which says for invoices greater than 500,000 naira, a cash requirement schedule report is produced and delivered to management. So if it is greater than 500,000 naira, if it is greater than 500,000 naira, what happens? We produce a cash request schedule. Greater than 500,000 naira, we produce a cash request schedule. Produce cash request schedule. So if the invoice is greater than 500,000 naira, this is what happens. We produce a cash request schedule. Now, what if the invoice is between 50,000 naira and 500,000 naira inclusive? That is our second condition actually. Between 50,000 naira and 500,000 naira. Now let me write it in full. Between 50,000 and 500,000. Between 50,000 and 500,000. What happens? If it is between 50,000 and 500,000. And because of space, I think I just need to change this to 50k and 500k. Between 50k and 500k. Okay. Now, if it's between 50k and 500k, what happens? From the question, it says invoices between 50k and 500k inclusive with an early payment discount. That means if the invoice is within this range and it has an early payment discount, or if it is more than 10 days old, it is authorized for payment. If it has an early payment discount, it is authorized for payment. If it is more than 10 days old, it is authorized for payment. What that means is that any invoice that is more than 10 days old is authorized for payment. Then any invoice that has an early payment discount within this range, now if it is more than 10 days old first, it is authorized for payment. So here we say if the invoice is more than 10 days old, so here we say greater than 10 days old, greater than 10 days, 10 days is authorized for payment. If it's greater than 10 days, what happens? There's no need for that. Let me just keep this. Greater than 10 days, authorized payment. So once it is greater than 10 days, we authorize payment. Now, What happens when it is less than 10 days? That's the next question. What happens when it is less than 10 days? Less than 10 days. When it is less than 10 days. Now, from the question it says, if the invoice is more than 10 days old, it is authorized for payment. Yes, we have done that now. The invoice is under this range and does not pass any of these conditions is rejected and tested another time. It means invoices under this range. What range? A range of 10 days old. We are treating invoices between 50,000 and 500,000, but the range is any invoice that is less than 10 days old and does not pass any of these conditions. What conditions? Whether it has an early payment discount or not. So it means that invoices under this range, under the range of 10 days, and does not pass any of these conditions. And what is the condition? Early payment discount. So it means that any invoice that is less than 10 days and does not have an early payment discount is tested another time. Now, it is less than 10 days, yes. Now, does not have an early payment discount. That is why we are dividing this into two again. Does not have an early payment discount is what is rejected and tested another time. So under this range, no early payment discount. This is the condition here. No early payment discount here. No early payment discount here. Yes. No early payment discount. So what happens? The action is that we test another time. From the question it says tested another time. So here we test another time. Test another time. If you can gradually break down the question, we'll have an understanding. Okay, now what if an invoice is less than 10 days and it has an early payment discount? It says, let's read it again. It says invoices between 550 and 500 inclusive with an early payment discount. So it means if it is within this range and it has an early payment discount, it is authorized for payment. Or if it is within this range and if it is more than 10 days old, it is authorized for payment. That's what the question actually says. So any invoice that is within this range and has an early payment discount is authorized for payment. So any invoice that is within this range, which is less than 10 days old and has an early payment discount. So here we say there's an early payment discount. Now because there's an early payment discount, what happens? We authorize payments. So we authorize payment here. So we authorize payment. So it means that we have deciphered the question. We have demystified whatever might be confusing about it. Invoices between this range. This is the second condition is actually what has some other sub conditions, which talks about the days, whether it is less than 10 days or greater than 10 days. Then if it is greater than 10 days, we authorize payment. If it is less than 10 days, we further test if there's an early payment discount, if we are entitled to an early payment discount or not. If we are entitled to an early payment discount, we authorize payment. If we are not, we test another time. Now let's make it to a real world scenario. What this question is actually saying is that One boat manufacturing has customers that supply raw materials that are less than 50,000, between 50,000 and 500,000, and those that are greater than 500,000. If you are supplying less than 50,000, your payment is quickly authorized by the system. If you are supplying more than 50,000, we just produce, if you are supplying more than 500,000, sorry, we produce a cash request schedule that's forwarded to the management. Now, if you are supplying between 50,000 and 500,000, we now test if your invoice has been lying around for more than 10 days. If it has taken more than 10 days that you supplied us, if it is more than 10 days, we automatically authorize your payment because we don't want you to keep waiting. Now, if it is less than 10 days, we'll now test if we are entitled to an early payment discount or not. Now, the practical scenario is that maybe one boat has arrangements with some vendors such that when they supply one boat and one boat pays them within 10 days, then they give one boat some sort of discount for early payment. Now, some vendors will not agree to that arrangement, so they will say whether you are paying us within 10 days or after 10 days, we don't care, just pay us our money. Now, one boat will not want to pay those vendors within 10 days because it doesn't benefit one boat for any, it doesn't benefit us for any reason, any purpose. So we will not want to pay them early. We will have to force them to wait till after 10 days. That is why it says if there is no early payment discount, we'll test another time so that we would have cash to pay those that are giving us discounts, and we'll be able to pay them within 10 days so that we can get the discount. So that's the real life scenario. Now, already we have our decision tree. So this is the decision tree for one boat manufacturing. Well, for their account payable system anyway, for the account payable information system. But let's just say decision tree for one boat manufacturing.